Hello? You know, intersections are funny because at intersections, people intersect. Hold on. I want to start over. Rewind it. Look, intersections are just intersections. And at intersections, people intersect. People, ideas, culture, the church and culture. At intersections, things just run into each other. And the thing about booming Jesus movements throughout history, those ones that have had a lasting impact, that have stayed with us, those people have been willing and eager to intersect, to get in the middle of things. You know, I told a story this Sunday about an intersection with my wild and crazy neighbors. Well, I hadn't actually met them, but I was sure that they were wild and crazy because I had seen them, and that's all I needed to know. They were wild and crazy. And I had spoken the week before about how God's church is everywhere. That once God came to earth in Jesus, in that strange mystery, God made this claim on all creation that it's all holy now, all of it. We're all holy. There's no secular and sacred. It's all God's. And I talked about how the impulse of the church was to just go where God already is, out there, you know. They had this simple confession, Jesus is Lord. And so they patterned their lives after Jesus. And then they just went out there where God already is. I'd talked about that, but on this Sunday, this particular day, I was trying to be a hypocrite. About my neighbors, about an intersection with my neighbors. What happened was, my wife said, "Hey, the neighbors are outside playing basketball." And I was like, don't tell me about the neighbors. I just want to isolate myself in my castle. Don't bother me. But then this sermon ran through my head. And I realized that it was time to just kind of do what I knew she was going to say next. She said, "Do you want to meet them?" And I didn't want to meet our wild and crazy neighbors, at least the neighbors that I had judged as wild and crazy. But I followed her back there to meet our neighbors. And, for once in my life, the way I had judged somebody was actually pretty correct. My neighbors were a little bit, wild and crazy. They said, "Hey, we have bonfires back here." And I was like, I know that, actually. I've heard you. And they're like, "Again, we also shoot guns back here." And I was like, I know that too. But I had missed something about my neighbors. And I would have kept on missing it unless this fourth thing that Jesus movements have in their DNA, as Alan Hirsch talks about, this fourth thing that my wife exhibited, calling. Alan Hirsch's word for it is apostolic environment. Fancy way of saying all these Jesus movements lived according to diverse giftedness and calling. The idea that all of us have different gifts, and when we mobilize each other in those gifts and we follow each other in those gifts, we make our way into new intersections. See, my wife is an apostle and I'm not. Apostles are pioneers. They're frontiersmen. They are frontiers women. My wife is an apostle. She believes in the mission of God at some innate level. She believes that it's so important to just push out into these new intersections and cross paths with new people. She's also an evangelist, a recruiter. She believes in the message of Jesus, the teachings. She communicates clearly and just wants to invite people into an understanding and an experience, an encounter with that message. And so I followed her into that new frontier, that intersection, and here's what I had missed about my neighbors. In that new intersection, yeah, they were wild and crazy, but here's what I'd missed. They are really, really, really good people. Really good people. Really hospitable people. They said, when we have a bonfire, we hope that you'll just come on back and join us. And they said, whenever we shoot guns, you should come back and join us. And I was like, okay. They were really good people. They are good people. And these great Jesus movements snapped into focus because I followed my wife, this apostle, this evangelist, into this new intersection. I saw that, yeah, Jesus is Lord. That God has become one of us in Jesus, and all this creation's holy now, everybody. And that there's something beautiful about patterning your life after Jesus. You wake up to actually who you are in God. I found myself waking up to my identity in that moment as I followed somebody else who has different gifts. I saw that third impulse, that missional impulse, that how when you get sent out into these places where God already is, church happens. The mission of God moves forward. And all of this happened, why? Because of that fourth impulse of every Jesus movement that's boomed and had a lasting impact. Those movements have had an environment of calling where they didn't just say, hey, it's all right that people have different gifts. They said, no, let's celebrate. We have different gifts, diverse gifts from the God of diversity. When we identify those gifts, cultivate them, and we're mobilized in those gifts, and we follow each other into new frontiers, really crazy and unexpected things happen. We meet great people at great and wonderful intersections of life. That's why this writer of Ephesians, so long ago to these communities that are trying to come alive in Jesus, that writer of Ephesians says, I beg you, you Ephesians, I beg you, people in Carmel, in Indiana, in the United States, and all over the world, I beg you to lead a life worthy of your calling. Or in other words, I beg you, don't stop short of your calling. Don't do it. We need it. We need all these different gifts. And he names 5 of them. He says, we need you apostles. We need you prophets. We need you evangelists. We need you shepherds. We need you teachers. Or to put it in other words, every single one of you out there, you have a calling. It might be covered up in sin and shame, but it's there. A gift of apostleship, of being a pioneer, of believing in the mission of God so much that you're willing to push hard into new frontiers when the rest of us are really afraid. We need you prophets, you questioners, you people of vision, you people of dreams, who cast dreams in front of us and make us dream of the kingdom. We need you evangelists, you people who love the teachings of Jesus. You love the gospel of Jesus Christ, that God has become one of us, with us in our suffering, forgiven us in our sin, and said, just follow me into new life, a new heaven, a new earth. We need you, evangelists. Shepherds, we need you. You nurturers, you caregivers, you people who carve out spaces of healing and wellness. We need you. And we need you, teachers, you people who have wisdom. The wisdom of the saints, the wisdom of God's people, the parables of Jesus in your heart. We need you, teachers. I beg you, lead a life worthy of your calling. If you do, we'll go into these new intersections, and these ideas will cross paths. People will cross paths. Religion and culture will cross paths, and God's kingdom will come to life, burst forth. I beg you, lead a life worthy of your calling. God gives you the grace, this writer of Ephesians says, just the right amount of grace. This free gift of love available to you every day, hemming you in on all sides to live of life to the exact degree necessary that the kingdom requires, a life of calling. This writer says God gives you the exact degree of grace you require to lead that life. So may you lead it.